pag-usapan natin ang isang mahalagang issue sapagkat ang deklarasyon, ang Proclamation 261 ay magwawakas na sa Sabado. 216. I stand corrected. 216. What will happen after it? Meron bang extension? Meron bang hihingi ng Pangulo sa kanyang State of the Nation address? May na-accomplish ba yung martial law sa Mindanao? Lumabas po ang balita, mga kaibigan, na mayroong 5 pintor sa Sulu ang nakidnap na naman ng Abu Sayyaf. So kung mayroong martial law sa buong Mindanao, ang tanong, anyari? What's going on? And to think na marami tayong military resources na nasa Mindanao na. Ano ang posibleng mangyari? Will the President ask for an extension of Proclamation 216? So we'll try to analyze ano na ang naganap sa Mindanao sa pagkakaroon po naman ng deklarasyon ng martial law mula noong 23 ng Mayo 2017. Ang sabi po ng Honorable Speaker of the House, Pantaleon Alvarez, hanggang 5 taon pa parang sinasabi niya martial law pa more. Tanong, ito ba ay makatwiran? Ito ba ay kailangan? So let's start. We're joined by former Senator Tatad, a columnist of the Manila Times, a good friend of Rigoberto Tiglao. At siya rin po ang nagbasa ng Proclamation 1081 noong 1972. Kasama natin si Commodore Rex Robles, isa po sa mga nasa likod ng RAM. Narito po si Atty. Larry Gadon, isa pong, sabi nga, tawasin mo na. Talagang digong ito, maliban sa isang issue. Pero we'll talk about it later. We're joined by Congressman Casilao. Siya po ay mula sa Anakpawis and he comes from Mindanao, particularly Davao area. No? Kaya mahalaga po yung kanyang presensya rito. Si Congressman Belaro, Salvador Belaro Jr., ay mula po naman sa unang edukasyon. Sky, magandang umaga.
Magandang Monday po sa inyong lahat sa ating mga guests for today at sa ating mga media friends na nandito. Very important yung discussion natin ngayong umaga. Kasi magtatanong tayo, ano nga ba yung update? Ano na nangyayari ngayon sa Mindanao?
Okay. Magbibilang pa ba tayo ng casualties, you know? One life lost is one too
Kung
many.
effective ba, at sabi kasi ng Malacanang, effective daw ang martial law ngayon na nangyayari doon. Totoo ba talagang effective?
Yun ang isa nating susuriin. Former Senator Tatad, ano po ang inyong pananaw dito sa deklarasyon ng martial law? Nagdesisyon na ang Korte Suprema at maayos daw naman. Magkakaroon kaya ng extension. What has it accomplished?
Ang hinihintay ko po, yung motion for reconsideration ng mga petitioners. Ewan ko kung file na o magpa-file pa. 60 days kasi ito, baka wala ng panahon. No? Pero kasi ang tingin ko, valid yung martial law in spite of the Supreme Court ruling. Kasi malinaw po ang sinasabi ng ating konstitusyon. For martial law to be valid. Nawawala ba? For martial law to be valid, dapat kino-confirm ng Congress in joint session. This component is missing in the whole process. No? I supported and I continue to support the proclamation on the ground that I believe it has sufficient basis. No? Although marami rin katanungan dyan, which we can discuss. Hindi po naganap yung inuutos ng ating saligang batas na 24 hours from the proclamation, the Congress, if not in session, will convene without need of call according to its rules. And within 48 hours, the President will report. May report na dumating sa Kongreso, pero hindi naganap yung proseso. meron dalawang resolution na inaproba ang Senado at ang House of Representatives. Pero this is not equivalent. This does not fulfill the requirement of the Constitution. Kasi halimbawa, sabihin natin na yung joint session ay katumbas ng aksyon ng dalawang kamara separately. Ang requirement dito sa Constitution, the vote of the joint session should be at least a simple majority of all the members. Ngayon, yung dalawang resolution na na-aproba, valid ang approval ng dalawang kamara, pero hindi ka makakasabi na ang boto dyan constitutes a simple majority of all the members of the Congress. Kasi in both houses, pag nagkuhan ka ng bill or resolution, ang kailangan mo lang na boto is a majority of the quorum, not of all the members. So, yan ang kaibahan dyan. So, hindi na-fulfill yung requirement. Okay. Takot ang Korte Suprema na himayin niya. No? Okay? So, nilampasan niyang issue sa ruling. Wala sa ruling eh. Oo. So, walang issue. Palagi mo na valid. At this point, kung magkakaroon na extension, dapat humihingi na ng extension ang Pangulo. Because under the Constitution, it's the President who has to initiate the extension. And it's the Congress that will decide whether or not to extend. Pati yung period, Kongreso ang magde-determine yan.
Okay.
Walang sinasabi kung how long, pero the presumption of good sense and that ang extension should not exceed the original term. 60 days ito, it lapses automatically and compulsorily on the 22nd of July. So kung magkakaroon extension, dapat naririnig na natin ng Malacanang, sinasabi sa Kongreso, we want it extended. Okay?
Okay.
Now, the other question which remains alive in the minds of legal luminaries is, dapat ba Mindanao, buong Mindanao, imbis na yung affected areas lamang? No? In time of Marcos, buong Pilipinas yan. Kasi we were fighting a nationwide rebellion of the Communist Party of the Philippines. At saka noon, under the Constitution, kahit wala pang rebellion or invasion in a particular area, imminent threat lang,
Pwede na.
sufficient na. Tinanggal yung imminent threat thereof na yan in the present Constitution. Okay. So magdedeklara ka lang ng martial law kung mayroong invasion or rebellion and public safety requires it. Where there is none, you cannot invoke imminent threat because tinanggal na nga yun sa Constitution.
Okay.
So these are some of the issues.
All right. Commodore Robles, coming from the military perspective, what has martial law achieved in Mindanao?
I'll answer it indirectly. If martial law is not approved or is lifted, I think President Duterte will lose a lot of his psychological advantage which he feels he has by proclaiming martial law and trying to demonstrate and demonstrating thereby that there is a serious threat. Because much of the debate right now that is going on is about, of course, procedure and also of definitions. But my concern is there is a threat and there are responses to the threat.
Okay.
We are talking about 1987.
Okay.
And there is a threat at that time and there are responses. And the response that we tackled, that the Constitutional Convention tackled, is martial law, without thinking of any other response. In other countries, that is not a fetter to the responses. They do not just consider martial law as the maximum. Actually, now in Paris, in Brussels, in so many areas, or Italy for that matter, dumaan ka doon sa harap ng bangko or ano, tutusok sa harap mo yung baril. That's a no-no for human rights people. But now, because of the threat, there are new responses. So I'm thinking of what response do we come up with, and I don't care if it's not called martial law or what, to deal with a threat like IS or the Daesh.
Okay.
Because the threat is different. It's ultra terrorist. It actually does not have any clear viable ideology. Puro patayan ng pinag-usapan at saka destruction. And what else how do you deal with it? Yun ang sa tingin ko ang kulang sa atin ngayon. So my answer is, martial law is not an important issue to me. What will the state come up with to respond to the new threat? Because now that noon walang internet eh. Wala kang Facebook. Ngayon, in order for the new ano pa tawag doon? Emir or yung namatay, to direct operations is just an internet connection. That's all he needs. And before, when martial law was declared or was tackled by 87, there was no internet.
Oh, nobody imagined.
Nobody even imagined. So then the transfer of funds, for instance, technology. There are funds coming directly from Raqqa to the Philippines and Raqqa via Australia. How they manage that, I don't know. But technology allows even drug lords to push a button in New York and transfer 300 million to Vietnam or Philippines. So ganun ang mga, para sa akin, ang mga things that concern me.
Okay, very well. Congressman Casilao, ano po ang inyong tingin sa Anakpawis sa issue ng martial law coming from Mindanao?
Well, the moment the President decided martial law, we registered our opposition. And in fact, during the deliberation in Congress, we voted no. The Makabayan Bloc voted no in opposition to the declaration. One, yung threat ng Malate and even Abu Sayyaf can very well be addressed by the current military resources.
Okay.
Pero ang problema nga dyan, sa kaliit-liit ba namang grupo na ito, and yung influence ba nila will require that amount of powers to be given to the AFP, unlimited powers. And unfortunately, ngayon, sabihin natin, mag-60 days na, no? Malapit na, matapos. Sabi nila, still, the conflict is ongoing in Marawi. Nanatili, 6 na po ang accounted na remaining combatants ng Malate and Abu Sayyaf. No? 8 po, 60 to 80. However, ang kabilang mukha naman, it resulted to 300,000 evacuees.
Okay.
Hundreds of death, millions if not billions lost to private and public properties, livelihoods, lives, especially lives. Hundreds of civilians, including our soldiers. No? These statistics cannot be justified by simply because of the threat that Malate and Abu Sayyaf could do away with the continuing implication ng terrorist acts nila.
Okay. Simula pa lang yun. Kayo po, ano tingin ninyo, Congressman Belaro?
Good morning everyone. Kami po sa unang Edukasyon Partylist, we believe that knowledge is power and that our advocacy in Congress is for empowering education. And in this issue, our take is that we have to be governed by the rule of law. 2 things po comes into play. First is that the extension of martial law should be viewed in that context. Since we should be governed by the rule of law, hindi po natin maiwasan to consult the Supreme Court ruling. And I'm afraid that in this regard, the ruling of the Supreme Court held en banc has created a precedent. And by the law, by the concept of stare decisis, which is, although it's a common law concept, it is persuasive in civil law jurisdictions like the Philippines. We cannot but consult it. Ibig pong sabihin, ito po ang ruling ng Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has ruled that there is factual basis for the imposition of martial law, and so we are bound by it. The Supreme Court is quite straitjacketed from deciding otherwise on an issue of extension, because by the matter of their functions, they are duty bound to observe judicial restraint. So under existing cases and jurisprudence, they cannot just overturn that unless there are very, very compelling reasons. So that is why, in my view, it is now a legal issue, the matter of the reimposition of or extension of martial law. So that
Okay.
is the first thing. The second thing is that on the propriety of imposition of martial law, because this is already settled, I guess. Also, this could also be settled by consulting the very letter of the Constitution, 1987 Constitution. Now, under the Constitution, the imposition of martial law is a distinct, unique power to the President, which is as a self-imposed deadline of 60 days. In short, it is only the President that grant that. He has a discretion. And when you talk about discretion in law, he can do it. No questions asked. Now, with due respect to the view of my idol Bicolano Senator Tatad, when you speak about the power of the executive in the context of separation of powers, medyo define din po yung konteksto, yung power ng legislative, and which is it can only convene in joint session if it will revoke or extend the proclamation. Because otherwise, we'll be diluting the power, the martial law power of the President.
Okay.
Pati po yung joint session, nakalagay din sa letter of the Constitution na it will only be convened if it will be convening. Now, as for the matter about the separate Congress and House of Representatives convening separately, well,
Coming
ito
up with
naman
the
po ay just
resolutions.
expressing the sense of the House. It did not do it, but just to perhaps to relate to the public that it is the sense of both separate houses of Congress, then it did so, but it did not do it. Yun naman po sa matter of covering the entirety of the Philippines or only part of it, that is also governed by the letter of the Constitution. Because it is explicit in 1987 Constitution that the President, exercising his martial law powers, could place under martial law the entire Philippine territory or part thereof. So yun lang po, rule of law.
Okay. Attorney Larry, bago tayo lumalim pa, ano ang pananaw mo rito sa martial law? Let's have it.
Magandang umaga, no? Yung declaration ng martial law, nararapat yon sapagkat nakita naman natin yung factual basis, ano? 98 government soldiers died, 390 terrorist rebels died, and almost half of the city destroyed and burned, no? So there is really a factual basis. Now, insofar as placing the whole of Mindanao under martial law, alam naman natin na these groups are really well organized, well funded. So, if martial law was not declared in the whole of Mindanao, they could have probably creeped to other areas. In fact, nung nahuli yung mga kamag-anak ng mga Maute, wala sila sa Marawi, kundi papunta sila sa ibang lugar. And they could probably strengthen or fortify their resources by going out of the territory, no? So yung declaration of martial law in the whole of Mindanao is really necessary. And the Supreme Court has spoken insofar as the factual basis of the martial law, declaration of martial law is concerned. We had a vote of
11-3-1.
11-3-1. But the three believed also in the factual basis of
But confined to
martial-
Marawi.
Oh, but confined only to Marawi. except for one justice who turned blind to everything just to show his rabid loyalty to the Aquinos.
Oh, what has the Aquinos got to do with it?
Because he's an appointee of Aquino.
But I believe that the Supreme Court justices who may have been appointed by Arroyo and by Aquino
Yes, but
and by Duterte.
yes, but consistently, this Justice Leonen has been opposing or issuing dissenting opinions every time there is an issue concerning the administration of President Duterte. Now, and for him to say that there is no factual basis, despite 98 soldiers died, 390 rebels and terrorists died, and half of the city burned and destroyed, wala pa ring factual basis para sa kanya. No?
So you find it strange and absurd.
Yes, we find it strange and absurd. And for somebody who became a dean of law school of the premier university in the Philippines, that is something that we should wonder why, no?
Okay.
Now, ngayon, yung insofar as the concern of my idol here, Senator Tatad, about the lack of procedure in observing the declaration of martial law, siguro naman, yung tama rin yung sinabi ni Dean and Congressman Belaro that the purpose of the calling for a session, for a joint session actually, is when the Congress would question the legality or the validity for the issuance of or the declaration of martial law. But if the factual basis is very clear, then there is no need for the joint session to be done, as the resolutions will do.
Okay. Senator, I don't know, pero ang sabi kasi nila, mas maganda pag may special session dahil may patawag yung speaker, yung Senate President, medyo may panggasolina.
May envelope.
May envelope.
Pero we are all friends here, no? And we can discuss the issues without drifting into ad hominems, no? To discuss the issues rather than the personalities involved. The text of the Constitution is very clear. We are in no position to add or subtract from it. No? The statement that the joint session is necessary only if they intend to revoke the proclamation is, I think, without any logical or factual basis. Because you do not know what the Congress will do until they assemble. And the Constitution says they have to meet, if they are not in session, they have to meet in joint session without need of call, according to its rules. So you do not revise this. No? Not even the Supreme Court has the authority to revise this. This is it. What is the harm? What prevented the two houses from meeting? I think this is something that should be addressed to every member of Congress, not only to the Mad Dog Speaker of the House, no? Who is so proud to say that kung may dumating na ruling dyan na hindi ko gusto, pupunitin ko. No? Such contemptuous behavior. More contemptuous than saying, sino ba ang walang girlfriend? No? This is the kind of thing we are getting from the leadership of the House.
Yeah. So you think this statement is rubbish, if not garbage?
Well, you have supplied it, no? Yeah. And I will not amend it.
Okay.
Now, yung sinabi ni Rex, I think is worth looking into. because the kind of terrorism we are experiencing right now was never anticipated by the Constitution. That's one reason why, in spite of the fact that Leonan is making a very strong distinction between rebellion and terrorism, I tend to support the view of the majority. Because Constitution the language of the Constitution falls short of the existing reality today. But the threat, as Rex pointed out, is real, it exists. But there is one question that we should examine. On September 4, 2016, President Duterte issued a proclamation of national emergency on account of lawlessness. And then on May 23, 2017, while he was in Moscow, he issued Proclamation 216. I'm curious to find out what exactly did Proclamation 216 add to Proclamation 55 that enhances the capability of government to deal with terrorism construed as rebellion.
Okay.
Now, the expiration date. My view is that the so-called reform of the Constitution under Section 18, Article 7 of the Constitution is not a reform. It is a deformation of the Commander-in-Chief provision. Nakita na natin, the threat or the danger has not expired, but the means to deal with the rebellion, which martial law, is going to expire on the 22nd.
Saturday. Yeah.
Oh. So we predetermined the solution without taking into account the problem that it's trying to solve. So nakita natin yung pagkukulang nito, provision na ito. And this is what deserves to be addressed by lawmakers. Tama si Presidente Duterte. Sa kanya sinasabi na maraming kabululan na pumasok dito. I agree with him there. Ang problema natin, and the lawyers here will agree with me, said Lex. Duralex said Lex. No? Oh. What is written is written. We have to comply with it.
Okay.
And make every effort later to revise it. Kasi mali. Nakita natin yung kamalian.
But
At
so for
pagkukulang.
the clarity of everyone, so with this issue of extension, who decides the extension?
It's here. It's Congress.
It's Congress.
The newspapers are not pointing this out kung ano headline na nilalagay. Oo. They
So
should
it's not
write
the
their
president.
news stories on the basis of the law. Ano?
The President will have to ask
The
Congress.
President recommends, no? Upon the initiative of the President, the Congress may, in the same manner, extend such proclamation suspension for a period to be determined by the Congress if the invasion or rebellion shall persist and public safety requires it. No? Medyo ang sumulat dito mga justices, mga learned lawyers. Pero I think as a journalist, I could have done better.
Okay. That's good, ha? Okay yan, okay yan. Ang sinasabi nung martial law nung 70s, may smiling martial law. Pero how would this differ with that of, under Proclamation 216?
Well, Melo, we have hello. Unfortunately, we are very focused on the Marawi incident. Yet, upon the declaration of martial law, hindi pa po, alam na po natin na hindi pa nilift yung all-out war na declaration ni Presidente noong February. This is addressed to the revolutionary forces, CPP, NP, NDF. When martial law was implemented in May 23, cases of human rights violation, not only limited to Marawi, let us lumabas tayo doon sa ano ang pinapakita ng balita doon sa Marawi. Pero nangyayari sa iba't ibang bahagi ng Mindanao, yung mga paglabag sa karapatang pantao na hindi naman directly related to the Maote and the Abu Sayyaf threat, but mainly directed towards suspected affiliated with the CPP, NPA, NDF. And it resulted to several similar incidents. May mga aerial bombardment sa Sultan Kudarat, may mga aerial bombardment sa Caraga region, sa Bukidnon province, sa Compostela Valley. And these are not related to the threat ng Maote. Pero may mga buckwheat, may mga pinapatay, 66 farmer leaders and active members of the different left-leaning farmer organizations are killed under the martial law declaration. Hindi po yan nababalita, no? Merong mga inaaresto na because of, by virtue of the powers vested upon the military, that they can interpret kung sino yung mga suspicious looking. But because they are left-leaning, pwede silang i-charge, and several were detained currently because of the actions done by the AFP by virtue of their additional powers to interpret who are the suspicious-looking characters. So, yun pong isang problema, Camelo, no? Na sa tingin namin, the objective of this martial law na, kumbaga, nadulas lang ba si Secretary Lorenzano nung sinabi niya na part of the objective of martial law is against the NPA, hindi lang simpleng nadulas because when the 12-point guidelines was released publicly, number 3 doon, yung target is the CPP, NPA, NDF. Ibig sabihin, they have not, they wanted to repeat the history that the declaration of martial law in 1972 was towards the CPP, NPA, NDF. Ngayon, maaring nagkaroon ng threat at nagkaroon ng incident sa Marawi, and because of this new type ng terrorism that could qualify to acts of rebellion na sinasabi ngayon ng factual basis. Pero intentionally, behind whatever the positive intention if in crippling down or neutralizing the Maote and Abu Sayyaf, nandun pa rin sa likod yung ultimate intention is directed against a bigger threat according to Lorenzana, which is the CPP, NPA.
Okay. So, parang cover lang yung martial law para maubos yung pinaniniwalaang makakaliwa. Ganon.
Well, hindi naman cover because it is part of the guidelines. It is written in the
So,
12
hayagan na to.
Hayagan na to. No? Hindi lang naman sinasabi ni Lorenzana because of the extortion activities of the CPP, NPA. But ngayon, ang justification na nila, the failure of the peace negotiation and the ongoing armed skirmishes between the NPAs and the AFP remained one of the top priority in terms of national security threat. So, sa tingin namin, lumabas tayo doon sa punto na ako po ay kaisa natin na matapos na kaagad itong Maote, itong Abu Sayyaf. Pero sa tagal ng panahon na nandyan yung Abu Sayyaf, nagtatanong tayo bakit sa kaliit-liit ng grupo na yan, nananatili silang buhay. Hindi na natin i-touch yung historical involvement ng powers that be ng kung bakit meron yung
So,
Abu
kasama
Sayyaf na yan.
Amerikano dyan. Ganon.
Of course, the CIA role in the creation of these Abu. And in fact, Camelo, when we went to Iligan and conducted an investigation, fact-finding mission, we have affidavits of stating that this started as a rido, a political rido between clans only. And the Maote group, and then this Pansar, the Salik group, who had been fighting all over again because of the position in Marawi, and the political position in Marawi. Pumasok na dito yung papel ng Emir na si Isnilon Hapilon. And whether or not Maote embrace the caliphate ideology or the ISIS,
We don't know.
ano na yan. But the terrorist acts they committed should be condemned and should be addressed militarily. Yung pang-hostage nila, pamamatay nila ng civilian is condemnable. No doubt about it.
Yes.
No debate on it. No?
Yeah.
Pero yung problema ng political rido na naging isang full-blown na armed conflict, which currently the ruling administration in Marawi sided with the AFP and made justification of this necessity for an all-out offensive,
Okay.
and eventually led to the declaration martial. September, October, nagkaroon na ng bakbakan sa Butig.
Aha.
'Di ba? Ang mga Malate group nandun na yan suppressed na yan.
Lumipat lang ng...
And in fact, itong mga bilang ng paparaming mga namamatay and recorded as members of Malate, ang sabi nga ng mga tao doon, hindi na po yan mga Malate, hindi na po yan mga Abu Sayyaf. Those are armed civilians who protested against aerial bombardment, against abuses committed by the AFP elements, na dahil armado sila, tinatag na lang silang Malate. Pero these are disgruntled, these are
Okay.
yung nagagalit na mga taong
Sibilan.
armado doon
Okay.
na hindi affiliated to whatever ideology.
All right. Commodore Robles, let me ask you, ano bang, hindi naman siguro classified, pero ano bang pagsasanay ng armed forces? Pangbundok nga raw yung army, pero nung pumasok sa syudad at nabago yung labanan, hirapan daw.
May you do your question again, please?
Yeah, urban warfare na raw ito. Hindi raw handa ang sundalo dyan.
That's true in a sense, yes. If you look at the guns alone, the weaponry, many of the firearms are rifles. And in urban warfare, you have shorter automatic weapons. Para pagpasok mo sa mga kwarto, hindi mo na nakatutok ka na. Hindi mo na tinataas at saka binababa. That's one thing. And then, they are not used to rooms being booby-trapped. Akala nila yung booby-trap dito lang sa kwarto na to. Nung pinaputok nila, nagputukan, patay mga 14, mga ganon. Baguhan sila doon. So, totoo yun na we need more training on urban warfare.
Dapat talaga masanay pa, magsanay pa.
Oo, baliktad ang nangyari. Katulad ng sa Mama Sapano, kailangan ng mga urban specialists like the
Special Action Force.
Special Action Force should have trained in guerrilla warfare. Pero kulang sila doon, kaya sila nahuli sa open field. Ito naman, ang mga army natin,
Sanay sa bundok.
sanay sa bundok, ngayon nag-aano. Kaya, saka may mga problema dyan actually na minor, pero you have to consider like the army is very conscious of the Marines. The army wants to be always the primary. Ayaw nila ng, katulad yung nag-kidnapping noon na may namatay na Amerikana.
Aha.
Problema yun, ang army namimilit eh. Nandyan na yung Marines, hinuhold pa sa headquarters kasi army ang may hawak. Kailangan army ang papasok. May mga ganon. You remember mayroon tayong Medal of Valor holder,
Subihana?
no, yung sa Constabulary, Ilonggo, si Parcon.
Aha.
Do you know where Parcon is now?
No
He's
idea.
in Bato-Bato. Sa Bato-Bato siya, pinaalis siya doon kasi sinagot niya yung Army General sa headquarters tungkol sa approach. Kasi the Marines have a certain approach. I don't know the details.
Aha.
The Army has a certain approach, and the Army wants to be
On top.
on top. And the idea is, we are not here to determine who is on top. We are here to destroy the enemy. Parang ganon.
Okay.
So, because of that rejoinder ni Parcon, tinanggal siya.
But seriously speaking, if you're to consider what Congressman Casilao said, na ito RIDO at may mga private armed groups, don't you think that the Philippine National Police and the DILG failed miserably to put an end to private armed groups and illegally possessed weapons?
Mahirapan ako sumagot dahil nag-operate din ako dyan sa area na yan. Yung Marawi, yung area na yan, kanya-kanyang armed group dyan. Kung mayroon kang gold na negosyo, kung mayroon kang, kung anong mga negosyo mo, mayroon kang armed group. So, it's not difficult for armed groups to switch loyalties depending on how attractive that is. So, to have a lot of people, like as much as 200 or 300, is not difficult because I have dealt with groups like 50, 60 people fully armed. And hindi nga makapasok ang MNLF dyan eh. Did you notice walang MNLF dyan?
Wala.
Kasi hindi nila kayang pasukin yung sa dami ng armas dyan sa lugar na yan. So talagang may ganun na aspect. Pero if you give me 5 minutes, I'd like to deal with something. Yeah. Worried ako kasi ang media natin is interested only in immediate satisfaction, headlines, mga ganon. A lot of work should go into thinking about the problem as it started 2013, 2014, when yung Abu Sayyaf declared, nagtaas sila ng bandera ng itim, sabi nila, ano na kami, IS na kami. That started that, but before that, a series of intelligence briefings by the armed forces, many of which I happened to attend, were already mentioning IS. President Aquino did not want that to be mentioned at all. Masisira yung pwesto niya eh, as a peacemaker eh. So, no, that's only my speculation, in fairness to him. But he did not want it mentioned. So, for 2 or 3 years, long before, mga 2013 to 2014, parang in denial ang armed forces. But the armed forces was not in denial. They have it in their briefings. But hindi yan in action. Like, for instance, nag-retire na si, I forgot his name, but yung mataba na intelligence officer na gustong-gusto ko siya eh. Kasi magaling siya. During the Mama Sapano, or before or after, I don't know, I think after Mama Sapano, he was talking about arms manufacturing in that area. He was even pinpointing the areas and what kind of arms were being manufactured. Mga ganun ba?
Yeah.
Nobody listened to him. It was a national broadcast. Nobody even attempted.
Yeah, I had a friend who even showed me their locally made Barrett.
Yes, ang gagaling. They can
Sabi ko, can I
manufacture.
take pictures? Wag naman.
Aside from explosives, mayroon na sila. So what I'm saying is, 2014, the Malaysians came out with a report regional that, and the Singaporean government came out with a statement that Southeast Asia was already becoming a center of development or for the IS. Mayroon ng report.
Yeah.
Radicalization
Yes.
of Southeast Asia. Malaysian report yun, 2014. So, early enough, we should know. The people who resisted Marawi had 2 to 3 years to prepare. Can you imagine the time to prepare how to
Okay.
But we were already that was already with the identification that we are a trouble area. At that time, in 2014, there were only 30 groups around the world, around 30, that are affiliated with ISIS worldwide. Now there are about 50 to 60, nag-double na, including a lot in the Philippines. So the problem is not Philippines, it's not just martial law. It's a problem, but the media should research naman, because I'm talking to you about open sources. I am not intelligence blah 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 officer. I'm just reading newspaper. But they are not reading what I am reading. I don't know why, or they're not interested in covering it.
Okay, thank you. Medyo malupit ito, pero there was somebody who said that ISIS could not survive in Mindanao because there is no resource for them to hang on to and protect, for them to make money.
May pera na eh.
May pera na.
Nadidetect na ang Rapa ay sending direct. And
Pakigamit na ng mikropono, please.
may pera na sending direct from Raqqa or somehow through Australia. I don't know the connection. But there's an Australian connection, and Australian money from Australia is coming in. That's some reports.
IC sending money to groups here.
Yes. Because before, it was the opposite. The groups here were sending money to IS.
Yes.
Parang parang
Tuition fee.
tribute. Nung medyo gumanda na yung pwesto nila, they started to... and then, when Syria became difficult for the IS, they saw the Philippines, the area, and the Philippines itself as a vulnerable area. That's why they developed here. But we tried not to, tried not to recognize
Play
it.
it up. Yeah.
I think the press should do a little more, instead of running after publishing every aspect of the opposition. The opposition now does not have an ideology. It has, but they're just opposing everything. But they're not saying kung anong gusto nila. Instead of just opposing, there are opportunities to express kung ano dapat ang mangyari.
Okay.
Walang ganun.
Okay, napakaganda ng puntong yun. Before we open the floor to our colleagues from the media, let me ask Senator Kit Tatad, you were once with the Foreign Relations Committee of the Senate. Don't you think it's about time for our embassies, our consuls, to be more proactive and monitor what's going on elsewhere, especially kung saan sila nakatalaga?
Well, I think it's safe to presume that they are doing exactly what you're saying. No, they're doing this. But whether the Home Office is able to use the materials that it gets from our posts abroad is another question. And whether this issue occupies the priorities in the DFA is also another question. I do not want to delve into this mellow because
Yes.
it's very. You have a newly appointed foreign secretary whose latest statement on the arbitral ruling sounds like a statement from the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Okay. Medyo nakakabahala pala yun. Pero anyway, Congressman, mula po sa inyo, your party list is Unang Edukasyon. How has the conflict in Marawi and in Mindanao affected schooling of our children? What quality of education will they get if they remain in evacuation centers, which are mostly government schools?
And nagsimula na ba?
Yun na nga eh. Ano kaya?
School.
The answer po siguro dyan is quite obvious and could be seen in the media. Of course, there's stunting of the educational process in that part of the country that is expected. But what we have to look into is how the government is faring in responding to the problem. I think there are programs by which children in the area are being accommodated in schools, in nearby schools, as well as personally, this representation has come up with bills proposing the rebuilding of Marawi. And I see it that I believe in the Chinese dictum that in every crisis there's an opportunity. And so kami po ang nag-propose ng bill to transform Marawi instead into a city of peace so that we could take advantage of this opportunity and send a signal to the terrorists that we are not deterred by their dastardly acts. So yun po. May gusto lang po sana akong sagutin, Camelo, with respect to the concept of martial law. Because as was raised earlier, yung martial law concept po kasi before, as it was implemented before, is not the same concept of martial law that we have right now. Because in fact, the martial law as espoused under 1987 Constitution is the reaction of the martial law that was implemented before. So explicit po nakalagay, may limitations po ang martial law ngayon eh. Martial law does not suspend the writ of habeas corpus. It does not confer military supremacy over civilian supremacy. And it does not suspend the functioning of the courts. That is why I am more in agreement with the observation of Commodore Robles that the problem should be shifted not on martial law, because as it is, wala ho talaga siyang impact, but on how the government will respond to the crisis, because it's now different. It's now 21st century, and we have to approach them international and globalized perspective. So, yun po siguro. And even then, we should give the President elbow room in doing all these things. And he enjoys legal basis for this. Under the Constitution, he is still the Commander-in-Chief of all the armed forces. And in any case, it is his function to ensure that all laws are implemented. So whatever gaps there are in the implementation of his powers, considering that he is the Commander-in-Chief, he should be given elbow room to interpret it.
Any statement, Congressman Larry, before we shift to Senator Tatad? Yes.
Yes. I'm really surprised that what Commodore Rex Robles has stated that the ISIS have been planning this years before, and in
Yes.
2014 there were briefings already done.
Armed forces, yes.
Oo. And it so happened that regular briefings, and it's just that it is unfortunate that we had a stupid idiot president in the name of.
Easy. Relax.
So and I think the concerns on human rights and this procedural lapses in the martial law, in the declaration of martial law, should give way to the greater concern of public safety and public interest.
Okay. Yeah,
Thank
Senator Tatad, please.
Yeah, just to react to Congressman Belaro's observation. No? We have no disagreement here. What's happening now is proof that the so-called attempt to reform the 1935 provision has failed.
1935.
Because the martial law power is a commander-in-chief power. This present constitution made it a power that is shared between the executive and the legislative. We're supposed to reform the existing. But, you know, if you follow the Constitution strictly, you're required to meet as a Congress. If there's a real invasion, how can you meet? Oh. Wala na. I mean, how can you go to court? Wala na yan. But this is the text of the Constitution as written by our friends in 1987. Kaya, Estelito Mendoza himself, I think, points that out in one of his lectures sa UP. No? Oh, na,
Hindi dapat.
Talagang na-emasculate yung martial law provision.
Okay.
But ang problema natin, when you follow the rule of law, as the congressman stated, kailangan mo sundin yung nakasulat. Di ba? So, we have really to study this more intimately and really reformulate everything.
Okay.
On account of these defects, on account of the new threats, as pointed out by Rex Robles.
Okay. Commodore, isang madaling tanong, maikling tanong, don't you think with such a situation, it will be very tempting for the armed forces to do something extra legal?
Mayroon lang akong insert muna ha, about the foreign affairs. You know, some of our very useful reports come from our foreign affairs. For instance, when we prepared for urban guerrilla, we were under the time of President Ramos, we prepared for urban guerrilla here, and the basic document which we based it upon came from South America. Remember yung Tupac Amaro, yung Tupamaros of South America? Mm-hmm. This was very, very detailed and well discussed by an ambassador. I forgot his name, I'm sorry. But he told it to us, and we were able to come up with a handbook for the armed forces to deal with urban guerrilla. Pero as I said, urban guerrilla before is not terrorism now.
Yeah.
Anyway, to answer your question of...
Will it not be tempting for the armed forces to do something extra legal?
The armed forces can be tempted if there are other reasons for it to take over power. Kasi you have to consider other political things like satisfaction of the people. Kasi when the people are dissatisfied, the armed forces will be dissatisfied eh. Automatic yan eh. Hindi mo na kailangan kausapin sila eh. Kasi pag uwi nila, naririnig nila yung sabi ng nanay, tatay, asawa, anak. They listen to that. So they express, it's the armed forces is like a stream that cannot be higher than its source. The source is the people. And the possibility if in the end, after given a few years, kasi ako, I am willing to give President Duterte 2 or 3 more years before I start attacking him. 2 years. I am willing, given that, we can come up with something that will be useful in the interim.
Okay.
And the dissatisfaction can, if he fails to address that, he will have a problem 2 to 3 years from now.
But in a forum recently, you mentioned that there were Americans knocking at your door in 1985. So, do you see Caucasian-looking guys knocking at the doors of the armed forces today?
No, this guy's name is Bill Wise of the office. He comes from the Pentagon, and he said he was sent by the State Department, no less, to talk to the RAM before, and this was because they detected the RAM as a growing force. Although we do not know how, but maybe they were able to come up with a judgment that we are a force that will alter the balance of power or whatever it is. But no, right now I'm fully retired, and I have no connections with.
But have you listened to any information that some Caucasian
Alam mo,
guys said?
I have friends in the Hudson Institute, for instance, a long time, and also from Tokyo. I don't know, his name is, I forgot his name, but he was here before. And he is now retired also. Many of my friends are already septuagenarians like me.
Yeah.
They have indicated the sense of importance of the U.S. regarding the Philippines. And unfortunately, it's highly divided. Highly divided. Because the U.S., in terms of institutions, is strong. But in terms of leadership, is not only weak,
Something
but
else.
crazy talaga. So, the institutions actually hold the U.S. on course. The leadership is the one that shakes up the whole thing.
Okay.
And that's why the U.S. cannot make up its mind what to do with the Philippines.
So far. Okay. But I remember, Sky will agree, sabi, one may be retired but can still be extremely dangerous.
So no one knocking at your doors right now, Commodore.
Okay. We'll open the floor to our colleagues from the media. We'd like to acknowledge our good friends who took time out to be with us. Paul Icamina, would you have some questions? Paul? Sige. Let's have it.
Senator Tatad, correct me if I'm wrong, but based on your statements, House of Representatives and the Senate, for not meeting in a joint session, violated the Constitution, the spirit of the Constitution. Are they somehow answerable for this violation of what the Constitution states? And is there some way, somehow, to make them answerable for this not meeting in the joint session?
Well, I agree with you on the first 2 points, no? But if you notice the Supreme Court ruling as written by Justice Del Castillo, there is no attempt on the part of the Supreme Court to compel the 2 houses of Congress to comply with the constitutional provision. So as the lawyers will tell us, the Supreme Court is always right, even when it is wrong. So we cannot do anything anymore to compel this, to compel compliance with the Constitution. I was hoping that the motion for reconsideration to be filed by the petitioners would include this point, no? Because it was glossed over. The same manner that when I brought a petition before the Supreme Court that was on the RH issue, they completely ignored the main point that I brought before the court. I gave the opening statement in the orals. But my argument is very simple, which says that if the Constitution says the state is the primary protector of the life of the mother and the life of the unborn from conception, it cannot be ever the source of contraception, not a single case. I think those who studied philosophy will remember the law of non-contradiction. No? Very simple, but this was completely ignored. And then, so I had to file a motion for reconsideration to say that my right to due process was violated because my argument was not even refuted. Na hindi sinagot, na hindi sinabing barumbado ka, mali ka. No, it was completely ignored. And the ruling came back. It just repeated what was said before without acknowledging my objection. So this is my fear. In this case, iniwasan nila citing the two resolutions. The resolutions were cited, but they didn't even say that this is equivalent to the compliance with what is stated in the Constitution.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yun, this will remain material for scholars.
To discuss and
to,
debate.
law schools to study. But
Okay.
mukhang wala na tayong kanya.
May I just
Sige.
say something about what Senator Tatad has said? Actually, there is another case questioning or there is another petition in the Supreme Court to compel Congress to hold its joint session. This is separate case from that case that was ruled upon by the Supreme Court on the factual basis. So, dalawang case yun. And this case, yung sa to compel Congress, has not yet been tackled by the Supreme Court. Kagaya nga ng sabi ng Senator Tatad, pwedeng hindi nila ayaw nilang i-discuss. No?
Okay.
They don't want to take it up. It could be that way.
But we cannot question the reasons why, right?
Yes. In fact, I had a very sad experience also with the Supreme Court insofar as the case of former President na Congresswoman Gloria Macapagal Arroyo when we filed several cases questioning the case of plunder filed against her. Every inch of the way, we filed petitions to question the legality of the file of the case. Pero wala, hindi rin nila inano.
Okay.
And even the bail issue, hindi rin nila tininan. Until, finally, when the former president was about to step down, doon lang nagbigay ng ruling ang Supreme Court.
So the Supreme Court can rule differently on
Yes.
almost parallel cases at different times.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Lingoy Alquas from Opinion. May I, what do you call, compare apples and oranges? Meaning to say that martial law in 1972 was apple, and now we have martial law in 2017, that's orange. My question is, noong pong 1972, ang sandatahan lakas natin was only about 50 to 60,000 strong. Yung aming pulis, yung ating pulis noon was localized, hindi pa integrated. Kasama na yung Philippine Constabulary doon sa 50 to 60,000. Samantalang ngayon po, ang ating sandatahan lakas ay 120,000 at meron tayong national PNP na 150,000. Noong pong 1972, ang Philippine Army ay may 2 division at 2 separate brigades. Isa lang yung division sa Mindanao based in Cagayan de Oro. Ngayon po, meron po tayong 1st Division sa Zamboanga, 4th Division sa Cagayan de Oro, 6th Division sa Awang, at meron pa tayong 1 division sa Davao. 4 na division. At more than half of the armed forces ay nasa Mindanao. Ngayon po, noong pong 1972, nung linusob ng regional or local MNLF yung Marawi on October 21, 1972, it only took about 3+ days to clear them out. Nung pong linusob yung Holo, noong February 4, 1974, it took Lieutenant Colonel Badong Mison 7 days to recapture Holo. Nung pong nagkaroon ng Zamboanga siege, it took 2 to 3 weeks to clear them out. Ngayon po, halos 2 buwan na po. Ang tanong ko po, at saka ngayon po, yung Amerikano, Inchik, Ruso, Australiano, ay nag-co-compete to help President Duterte. But may I ask Secretary Tatad if this is true, that in 1972, 73, maybe up to 74, ayaw bentahan o bigyan ng armas at bala ng Estados Unidos ang Pilipinas. At wala pa tayong ganun na develop na connection sa ibang mga major powers. Kaya bumili tayo ng Italian Marchetti, Italian Howitzer, Portuguese fake na komando, etc. etc. So bakit napakatagal ngayon, samantalang mas marami ang rebelde noon, dahil ngayon tahimik yung MILF, tahimik yung MNLF. Yung bang problema yung mas matapang yung mga rebelde ngayon? O mas matapang yung mga sundalo noon? Lalong-lalo na yung mga trainee na pinadala sa Cotabato noong 1973.
Okay.
Dahil from 2 battalions, naging 30 battalions.
Okay. So yun ang tanong. Thank you. Oh. Si Commodore Robles ang sasagot.
Sino daw mas matapang ngayon?
Sa anyari.
Sasagutin ko muna, very quick observation. Syria. Syria ang kalaban ng mga rebelde doon. US, Russia, the 2 most powerful military, plus the government of Syria, plus a couple of others, some of them Israel, mga ganon. So talagang seryoso ang banat. Mayroon pang ang mga eroplano na lumilipad doon, hindi ordinaryo. 5 taon bago nila sabihin na mukhang malapit na. Up to now, mayroon pa silang mga... So, the nature of the warfare has actually changed. The weapons that are available changes the strategy. And the weapons that are available now to the terrorists are different weapons. And I include Facebook and the internet. Wala yan noon eh. Tsaka ako mayroon akong sinasabi dyan, Senator eh. Habang wala pang suicide bombers dito sa Pilipinas, hindi pa seryoso yan. Suicide bombers come out because of dissatisfaction. For instance, in Saudi Arabia, you're saying Saudi Arabia is very rich. But the dissatisfaction level is very high because per capita income decreases every year for some reason. Nagdi-decrease, although they are richer and richer. The people become poorer and poorer. And so there are many, I don't know the word, parang dispossessed or nawawala na ng pag-asa sa gobyerno. So ganon. Now, may I go to strengths. How many were we during martial law? Maybe about 45 million. We have doubled since that time. And what kind of figures do you want? For instance, do you want 1 soldier per 1,000 persons? If you do that, then you will need 1 million soldiers for the Philippines. If you only 1 soldier for 1,000. Right now, we have something like 2 to 3 ba yun? Kasi 10% of 100 million is 1 million. 1% is 100,000. So we are something like 1/3 of 1%. So what kind of proportion do you want? If you talk about, for instance, Iran. Iran has 1 million soldiers, foot soldiers, but it has about 2 or 3 million reserves and yung nagpapatakbo, yung sa opisina. When you have 1 soldier in the field, you need 3 people to back him up. So if you need, for instance, if you need soldiers now, if you say 1/2 of 1% na lang, is 500,000. Di ba? 1/2 of 1%. And you need soldiers to cope with that. You will need 1.5 million people to support the 500,000 soldiers who are fighting.
Hindi ba kaya ng CAFGU yan?
Yeah.
Saka force multipliers tulad ng security guards?
Kaya ng CAFGO kung marami sila. Ang problema, kukunti ang mga sundalo natin. For instance, right now we have about 50, 60 battalions? I don't know. Ang battalions natin, hindi katulad nung Ninita unit na 1,000 per battalion. Ang battalion natin ngayon, pag 250, battalion na yun eh.
Ganun.
Oo! 250 lang para magkaroon ng mga general, di ba?
Dumarating yung panahon na mas maraming general kaysa doon sa...
Yung isang battalion ngayon, pwede mag-produce ang 1,000 people can have 4 generals.
Really?
Oo. Pero noon, isa lang, wala pa nga, kukunti lang. So, ibig sabihin, bloated, medyo ang figures natin. So, I would suggest that maybe, in terms of numbers, as a soldier, we need a lot more people.
Okay. How does it look to you?
Well, we have a very different school of thought, Camelo. One, who benefits a prolonged war? Sa question kasi kanina, I really wanted to share, who really created ISIS in Syria after the post-occupation in Iraq? Again, I can present all day documents, data. These are verified data. Well, ang hindi kasi napag-uusapan sa madla, yung ano talaga yung nagiging papel ng US. In this war on terror era, they are the very country who benefited an ongoing, a new created enemy, which is terrorism. And the global threat thereof is one of the most profitable business of the war industry or the military-industrial complex of the United States, interfering different threats, not only in the Middle East, but also now, sabihin natin sa Southeast Asia na naman. So, ang tingin namin, habang tumatagal ang gerang ito, merong nakikinabang. Without discounting the possibility, totoo naman talaga, there is that threat ng ISIS, ng terrorism. But again, tingnan po natin yung makasaysayang pagbuo ng mga grupong ito simula noong post-occupation sa Iraq. Diyan mo malalaman kung who really funded, one of the biggest funder of ISIS. It's the CIA who contributed non-lethal assistance to the Syrian Federation fighters that created eventually ISIS.
Yes, please.
May I have 2 questions?
Yes, please introduce yourself first.
Okay. I'm Toru Morinaga from Japanese newspaper Daily Manila Shimbun. I'd like to ask you, especially Congressman, the extension of martial law or the Malawi crisis will affect the Bansam law, basic law. It is supposed to be submitted to President today. And also, I'd like to ask Attorney Larry, in a decision by Supreme Court, I think it says factual basis. When they say factual basis, it should not be the evidence or something. Just things the president can trust or assume that the truth or something. It is okay to interpret the Constitution. I wonder, is it okay or not? So I'd like to ask you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, on the impact of what's going on the Bangsamoro Basic Law?
This afternoon, representatives of Congress will be attending in Malacanang to formally receive the final draft to be submitted by the BTC. Of course, we will be deliberating it after we resume our session, the opening of the second regular session, which is on July 24. With the question whether it will be affected, politically, frankly speaking, it will. It will be affected because currently with whether or not the original proposal will be maintained or Congress will amend a lot, definitely it will be a lot, and it will be unacceptable for the Moro people. It will result to another problematic scenario. Hopefully, although without taking into account positive steps, with the ongoing martial law, supposedly it should be treated differently. But it cannot be treated differently because it is considered as one of the problems also being faced by our Muslim brothers and sisters now. However, the proposal of the new BBL draft proposed by the BTC should be considered comprehensively and seriously by Congress.
As to the effect on the BBL law, I think they are related, but they need not affect each other. Because if we stick the theoretical formulation of martial law, it is only supposed to address the very issues which is the reason for its imposition.
What do you have to say, Commodore Robles? Because you also know these people or these characters in Mindanao.
What is the question?
Will the BBL or will the conflict in Marawi affect the BBL?
I have not seen the draft, so I cannot answer. Although, in a general sense, I can say that the Marawi conflict has given a totally new dimension to it, where you find even the MNLF, old MNLF and the new MNLF, plus the MILF, they were actually not prepared for the scale and the nature of the problem. And some of them have already announced that they are ready to stand by the side of the government. As to whether the government can parley or use this attitude to help weed out muna yung mga maute, I do not know.
Okay. Senator, would you have your thoughts shared with our colleagues?
Well, I am more interested in looking at what comes out from the deliberations, because this thing has undergone some changes from the original draft to the point where Bongbong Marcos got involved. The document has changed a lot. And I suppose can be assumed very safely that the conflict has affected the proposed legislation. I was talking to one Muslim individual who said that it would be very necessary to identify one police authority, one police force that should be able to deal with all the factions involved in the conflict. And this would be one of the central points in this new document.
Okay, thank you. Attorney Gadon, for your answer.
Yes. I am in constant communication with some of the people involved in the drafting of the BBL. And that from what I know is that they have already removed all the unconstitutional provisions that were criticized before, and that this time I think it has a better chances of passing through the scrutiny of the Congress and the Supreme
Now,
Court.
the question is, will it be acceptable to the MILF?
Well, I cannot really.
Yeah, that is the question. And he also has a question for you about the assumption, yes, on the Supreme Court decision.
Well, the Supreme Court decision only shows that the justices of the Supreme Court, majority of them, a big majority of them, trust the President, and that they are upholding the principle of regularity of the performance of duty of the president. So they believe that the president has all the information and even the confidential information on what is going on in Marawi. And so they believe that there really was a factual basis when President Duterte declared martial law in Marawi and in Mindanao.
Yeah. Okay. More questions? Pat, do you have a question? Please. Before we say goodbye.
Pat Santos po, Tribune. Senator Tatad, ito pong martial law sa Mindanao. If in case po, i-extend yan ito po sa Luzon, ano sa tingin yung kinakaharap na problema politically ng mga opposition kay President Duterte at ano po magiging outlook sa pananaw niya lang ng sitwasyon po, prevailing sitwasyon politically sa Luzon?
Kung magdeklara ang presidente ng martial law.
If in case.
Yeah,
Hypothetical
if in
lang.
case, yeah.
Tignan natin. Purposes of forum discussion.
Well, it's not wise to answer hypothetical questions. No? Should avoid that. But martial law, as we understand it, as evidenced by what has been said here, is supposed to be a solution to an existing problem. Do we see the problem that exists in Marawi today existing also in all of the Visayas and Luzon? I cannot say how a majority of the population would respond to that question. So if it were extended to the entire country, well, it has to be made clear that there is an actual invasion or rebellion and public safety requires it. If this condition does not exist, so that kind of proclamation would create a problem rather than solve one.
Thank you. One last question.
Last question. Tracy Cabrera po sa opinion at hataw. It appears that there are so many dissatisfied with how the Duterte administration responded to the crisis. Kung kayo, bawat isa sa inyo, naging presidente, how would you have responded? Or how would you respond?
So, kung sila ang presidente,
Kung ako ang presidente, baka hindi nangyari po yung problema.
okay? Palagay ko, hindi sasabihin ng mga kasama natin. Okay, we're pressed for time. Let me ask our panelists. Should there be a call for extension of martial law based on what's going on in Marawi and suburbs? What would be your suggestion? Larry.
Well, there should be an extension of the declaration of martial law because the fighting is still there and ongoing. And we do not really know the extent of the preparation and planning of the Malate group and the ISIS.
Okay.
In fact, when this thing happened, when this thing broke out, we were really surprised. And we were surprised by the precision of their planning and the extent of their resources. Imagine up to now, almost 60 days, and they're still full of ammunitions.
Okay.
And so I believe that there should be an extension.
Okay, so martial law pa more.
Oh, martial law pa more.
Okay, okay.
Yes. And if the only concern now is the procedural lapses, or what you may call lapses, or constitutional questions, then I think it's high time that we revise the Constitution.
Okay.
And that is in fact what we're doing now in Conform to Federalism.
All right.
We are moving for the revision of the Constitution.
Okay, thank you very much. So there you go. Gaano katagal? How long?
How long? Another
60 days.
60 days.
Okay.
Yes, another 60 days.
Thank you. Congressman.
Just to answer po yung tanong, hypothetical question, what would I do? As if you were the president, you are not your own person. You are governed by the rule of law. So you have to consult the rule of law also. And yung sa martial law extension, sabi ko po kanina, ay yung principle of stare decisis, medyo bound doon yung Supreme Court to decide otherwise. Now, as for the decision of the both houses of Congress, I cannot preempt them to decide as to their evaluation of the factual basis of the imposition of martial law. But in my personal opinion, the issue here is legal. If the same factual basis would subsist, then legally there is a ground for an extension of martial law. And may I repeat, if the same factual basis as found by the Supreme Court still subsists, depending on the report by the President to Congress, then there is legal ground to justify the extension of martial law. As to how long, it would depend upon the review of the houses of Congress voting jointly. That is what is in the Constitution. Last point lang po, ito po, because consistent with our pronouncement on the rule of law, much of our problems here in the Philippines with respect to constitutional interpretation is not really something which should lead to constitutional crisis. What we have here is a crisis of interpretation. Because if we just observe, we just strictly adhere as a constitutionalist, na nagtuturo po ako ng constitutional law, and this is what I tell my students. This is very basic in statutory construction. First, you go to the letter of the law or the Constitution. If the letter is not sufficient to generate the answer that you want, then you go to the spirit. And interpreting the spirit, the basic rule is common sense. So there you go. We don't have a constitutional crisis. All these things that are involved in media today, it really depends as to how you interpret it. Because if you are partial to another person, then you interpret that way. But if you stick to the letter of the Constitution, then we shall not be held astray. What we don't have a constitutional crisis, but a constitutional crisis of interpretation. Yun lang po.
Thank you. Congressman, mula po sa Anakpawis.
We will maintain our opposition if given the chance na maihapag ito sa Kongreso. We will still vote, not as a matter of the legal basis anymore. Ano? Political na ito eh. Again, we are one with the Filipino people in neutralizing the soonest possible time any threat that especially yung nag-i-espouse ng terrorist acts, no? Like what the Malate and the Abu Sayyaf group is doing. However, we maintain that the current military resources and force can sufficiently address the threat. Second, we must go beyond the problem between itong na-hype sa media ngayon. We should study more doon sa ang batayan kasi namin ng opposition ngayon. We express the sentiment of majority of the evacuees where we for a week we have been there to discuss their problems and hopefully communicate with the president with regards to the current sentiment of the people. And we really intend to yung kumbaga ang malalim na problema dito sa usapin ng paano i-resolba ang threat ng Malate and Abu Sayyaf. Kagaya lang yun ang tanong eh, bakit sa katagal-tagal, almost 10 years na, ang Abu Sayyaf from 15 hanggang sa kasalukuyan, nandyan pa rin. Ano? So malalim na problema na yan. It involves corruption also within the AFP, how they purchase, how they access ammunitions that continue to supply their combats, no, or their combatants. And malalim po, maraming usapin po yan. But again, ang gusto din ko pong ipaabot at irehistro, yung implementasyon po ng martial law sa Mindanao, nagkakaroon na po ng mga iba't ibang anyo. And the effect is not only limited to what is being reported in the media that the Maotes and the Abu Sayyaf. Umaabot na po sa punto ng mga common, yung mga hindi lang mga Maranao. Other tribes of the Muslim communities are being also affected. And aerial bombardments are not only happening in Marawi City. It is happening in the 9 provinces of Mindanao. But these 9 provinces are not in any way related to the Maote activities, but other security threats being considered by the government, which resulted also to loss of lives and properties to the civilians.
Thank you. Commodore Robles, please. Marcelo Pamor.
Yes, because we just considering Mindanao para hindi tayo masyado mahirapan. I think what happened in Cebu and in Bohol and what
Bohol.
happened in Marawi are actually good in the sense na na-alert tayo. Na-alert ang citizenry. Sa Palawan, maaari silang magkaroon ng extension doon pero medyo mahirap din. Ang Mindanao, sa tingin ko, medyo ibang istorya yan. Gusto ko ng martial law sa Mindanao kasi ang tingin ko sa Maote, yung cancer na nagme-metastasize, oo. Hindi mo alam kung sa kilikili lalabas o sa tiyan. Hindi mo alam eh. Because they have so many, katulad nung sinabi nila na they want to talk, they said, we want to talk but it must be with MILF. So ibig sabihin, may mga koneksyones sila sa MILF. And it will not be difficult to imagine an MLF or BFF suddenly coming out in the open against against the government. So, as far as Mindanao is concerned, my answer is yes.
Okay, thank you. Senator Kit, please.
I think nasagot ko na yun eh. Kanina pa. Well, I think if they're determined to extend it, what we say here will matter very little, no? Pero I just want to reiterate an earlier statement that the situation today shows the errors committed by the CONCON when they limited the proclamation of martial law to a specific term. Because dapat the response should be equivalent to the existing problem that it's trying to address. Kung may invasion or rebellion, paano mong nasabi that in 60 days, dapat tapos na yung sagot mo? Nandun pa yung problema. Di ba? So, back to the basic issue, kailangan ayusin natin ang ating saligang batas.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mga kaibigan, on that note, we'd like to say thank you to everyone. However, there remains an issue here. Somebody's terrorist may be somebody else's freedom fighter. So next week, we will try to decipher, read the signals. We'd like to talk about ISIS. You know, when I was young, pag sinabi mo IS, international school yan eh. Pero ngayon, hindi na. Iba na. No? Delikado na. Hindi ba yung St. Ives yan? Anyway, that's another topic. Mga kaibigan, I'd like to thank you for being with us today. Hanggang sa susunod na edisyon ng ating punong tapatan sa Aristocrat sa lahat ng ating mga panauhin. Magandang umaga po. We will talk about ISIS next week. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.